Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming. My name is Bonnie Kenselar, and I work in the Department of Alumni Relations. And I'm very happy that you're here tonight at our Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writer Alumni Reading Program. The MFA in Creative Writing Program is one of the crown jewels in the university, and under the direction of Jane Ann Phillips and her distinguished faculty, the program nurtures and gives a voice to amazingly talented writers. Tonight you're in for a real treat and an MFA trifecta. The alumni who will be reading tonight, Krista Paravani, Kevin Catalano, and Nick Rapatrazone will read from their original works, some of which have been published and some of which are about to be published. To introduce tonight's readers, I'd like to welcome Paula Nieves to the podium.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, and thank you all so much for coming out this evening to support your colleagues and your friends. I see a lot of familiar faces and some new ones. Bonnie and I have been working on this program since at least the early summer, and I really want to thank Alumni Relations for sponsoring this. They sponsored it in its entirety, and I think it's wonderful that they're doing this for the MFA program. And one of my goals is to see this continue so that future graduates have the opportunity to come back to campus and share with their colleagues the work they've been doing and the books they are going to be publishing. And I'm really looking forward tonight to our three readers. So I think I'm going to go ahead and start and introduce our first reader, Kevin Catalano. I'm going to read straight from their bios. So Kevin is an MFA graduate. He graduated this spring, right? 2012? Yes. Okay. He was born and raised in Chittenango, New York, a small village outside of Syracuse that celebrates the birthplace of Wizard of Oz author L. Frank Baum. He's the author of a book of short fiction, The Word Made Flesh. His fiction has appeared or is forthcoming in Pank, Pierre Noir, Medicine, Emprise Review, Atticus Review, Willow's Wept Review, Fiddleback, and others. He teaches literature and composition at Rutgers, Newark, and lives in New Jersey with his wife and daughter, both of whom are here. And he's also one of my colleagues in the writing program, so welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Paula. And thank you, Bonnie, for organizing this event. This is really cool, and I'm honored to read with Krista and Nick, both really amazing writers. So the book I'm reading, is it okay, or no? How's that? Better? Okay. So the book I'm reading from is called The Word Made Flesh, and I realize how perfect this is. And I do think these stories would be best enjoyed if you do look at the testicles while I'm reading. I think it will add something. Okay, so the collection is a collection of short fiction, flash fiction. So what I'm going to do is read the title piece, which is very, very short, and then I'll read something longer after that. Okay, so this is called The Word Made Flesh. And the men came down the mountain, came out of the wilderness, cast in furs and skins, the rank of beast on their gnarled bodies, a fearful mystery in their eyes. Damp early morning, the waiting multitude gasped and backstepped, the lip of the sea crisp at their heels. Women and children and men, they locked arms and shivered not for the cold. From amongst the mountain men charged forth one, fanged and noseless and translucent-eyed, and he spoke. And when he spoke, the creatures of the mount spewed from his mouth. These bobcats, these wolves, these deer, these snakes, these squirrels, these scorpions, these bats, these beetles, these owls, these all shrouded the multitude in a deafening cloud. And when it was all told, the savage teller commanded the creatures back into his mouth, and the men retreated up the mountain and into the wilderness, leaving the sea to lap at the congregation of bones. Okay, so this story is called The Multitude. All of the titles kind of come from that one opening piece. Okay. The young couple walked the neighborhood streets, freshly plowed after winter's first heavy snow. Sidewalks and driveways unshoveled, waited for people to return home from work to the chore, an hour's worth at least in the night soon to come. A pickup with a rusted plow sped toward them. Douglas maneuvered to shield his wife. Usually she was amused by the protective behaviors he'd adopted since she became pregnant. He half expected her to slide her arm through his and press her coat fluffy body against him. They just returned from the hospital. The doctor had explained what the bright spots in the ultrasound meant. Tumor, cyst, Downs. The words were hazy in Douglas's head, as though they had sunk into the ghostly part of his thinking. It wasn't that he didn't care, he had explained to his wife. It was just that it took him longer to process. It scared him as much as it did her. His wife began to cry again. He searched his pockets and found an old fast food napkin. He handed it to her, but she ignored him and walked a few steps ahead. The snow began to tint pink. The sun was going down and evening would come, and the next time he saw a car, its lights could be on. 2 driveways ahead, down the crest of the street, an old man was shoveling. He wore an ear-flapped hat and red flannel coat. He worked the shovel deliberately, a shallow scoop and walk to the edge, a twist of the blade. As they passed, the old man held the shovel limply. Douglas felt sorry for him and made the mistake of looking into his soft blue eyes. Want some help? After Douglas said it, there was a quiet moment when the world didn't respond, and he was relieved that he might not have spoken. The moment gone, the old man said matter-of-factly, "Yes." For the first time, his wife stopped and faced him. She searched his eyes as if for recognition, not in rage, but outright wonder. Douglas looked at the old man to free himself, but the man waited, leaning on the shovel. "Jesus Christ," she muttered and walked off. I won't be long." The sound of his voice was pathetic. She was moving away quickly, and at one point she slipped and her arms came out of her pockets. She found her footing and continued, more determined to get away. Another shovel's in their garage. Douglas expected gratitude from the old man, but he continued shoveling. Douglas sighed and turned toward the garage, high-stepping the snow to get there. He found the shovel and turned back to the driveway, alarmed at how dark it had become, the old man's form pixelated and dreamlike. Douglas re-walked his steps, his cheeks hot with cold, snow leaking into his boots and biting his ankles. "I'll take this side." The old man said nothing, and Douglas sighed and dug into his job. He worked as fast and hard as he could, not even looking where he was flinging snow. Soon the hems of his jeans were globed with ice. It was getting darker, colder. The snow on lawns was now purple, this the loneliest time of day. Where was she now? How long had it been? He wore no watch, and his cell was in the car. Their progress on the driveway, a quarter of it cleared, didn't translate into time. He shoveled faster, feeling the ache in his hamstrings and back. Then a commotion behind made Douglas flinch. He turned and saw a mysterious movement across the street. A multitude of dark forms was taking shape. Their lithe, liquid movements mimicked the noisy silence of nightmare. Douglas stepped back, even though he was far removed. Their forms broke from the shadow of the house and came in full to the yard, a herd of 10 or 15. The old man coughed, and at once heads and ears perked up, and the deep black eyes of the deer steadied on them. Douglas held his breath for a long moment, fearing that even a careless thought would trigger something unimaginable. Then, in unison, they continued their creaturely trek, stepping the snow in a casual line toward the street. At the curb, the large antlered males dipped their thick necks as if quizzing the space, then eased out to cross the street and then the yard that belonged to the old man. So easy and fluid were their movements that Douglas's heartbeat found its native rhythm. A double flash at the summit of the street froze a stream of crossing deer. Headlights illuminated the snow's spin and glowed the deer's eyes white. The car, too fast for this neighborhood, not slowing, horn blaring, crashed into a pair of the animals, hurtling one as if shot from a cannon, gripping the other to the grill. The car screeched and slid a few yards before stopping, the startled herd fleeing into the shadows. Douglas heard only his own whimpering. Cutting the cold aluminum air was a stink of exhaust and musk. The mangled heap of creature meshed into the car's chrome was motionless. The part of Douglas that knew death knew it was dead. Yet sounds of life came from the flung deer, thrashing in the street one house down from the old man's. Its front legs working, the back ones limp, it dragged itself a couple of its own lengths, collapsed, then tried again. The drag of the body and thud and scrape of hooves on ice resounded through the stillness. What scared Douglas most was that the animal's eyes reflected no anguish. If it were chewing grass or nosing its dough, those eyes would look the same. "Check on their driver," whispered the old man. Douglas had forgotten about the driver. The airbag clouded his view through the windshield, though on the steering wheel he might have seen a knuckle, a hand. He got no farther than the old man's mailbox, still a good 10 yards from the car, when the dead deer suddenly dropped from the car with a sickening thwump. Douglas's stomach leaped and he fell backwards into the snowbank. There was an echo from the hoof that clattered the street. Spooked, Douglas scrambled to his feet and sprinted away, the old man yelling after him. He wasn't sure where he was in the neighborhood, other than running back the way he had come with his wife. His boots were too heavy to carry him faster, and the ice slicked his steps, so he must have looked crazy-legged drunk to someone watching him from a house, though at this time of evening, no one would be home. That's all I got. Thank you.